Hello and welcome back to Memphis's podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking about why it's important to give a safe space to females. Before we get into it, I'd like to introduce our sponsor for today's video. Here, Doug, why don't you introduce it?
Okay, sure, Memphis. Are you more on the feminine side? Do you like meetings where you can just be yourself? What about a friend group who will always be there for you? Then join the Sisterhood Club at room 203 at lunch on every second Thursday or Friday. Don't want to miss out.
Thanks, Doug. Before we can move into the topic, we should probably know the definition of a safe space. So, a safe space is a place or environment in which a person or a category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any emotional or physical harm. I created sub-questions to try and get deeper into my essential question. Some of these were well-developed questions that got answers, and others are still unanswered. I want to start by finding out how females created their own safe space. So I sent out a survey with a few different questions to the girls on my Snapchat and Instagram. I ended up with over 40 answers. 75% of these girls said they turned to drugs and alcohol to deal with stress. Some turned to self-harm or harming others. These girls numb themselves by using these to either not feel or to pass out instead of dealing with the pain that they're in. School and family were the most answered for what stresses them out the most, meaning that home lives are not as good as we think they are, and some of these girls don't want to go home at the end of the day, where others would prefer to stay home instead of facing school. School came into two different options, two different types of anxiety, the social and learning part of it. Some of the girls said that they feel like they have no one at school that is their friend, or they worry that they are not enough for their so-called friends. Others talk about how teachers sometimes are too hard and give too much homework that piles up and causes stress from multiple classes with homework. I learned that 25% of these girls are able to turn to healthy coping mechanisms such as painting, writing, breathing exercises, listening to music, and many more. These girls were able to use healthy ways to unwind. They get just as stressed from the same things, such as family, school, and their future. I found that the 25% of girls are more stressed with school and turn to healthy coping mechanisms, where the other 75% are more stressed with family and then turn to drugs or alcohol. Some of these girls in the 25% have mentioned trying drugs, but finding it didn't help them and made them more stressed. These results shocked me. Okay, well, I guess some of these girls don't have a safe space, a healthy one. How can I provide them with one? So, early in my junior year, I created the Sisterhood Club at McRoberts. It is a small group of people who are dominantly feminine, who do things like exercise on how to stay humble and meditate. It was created because I believe it's important to create a safe space for women in our society. I had moments as a student where a club like this would have been very beneficial, but when something doesn't exist, you have to create it. Serena Sandu, a student at McRoberts, said, "The Sisterhood Club gave me the opportunity to share my feelings with others in a healthy environment while receiving tips on how to deal with these feelings." Everyone who comes into the world should be granted a safe space at home, yet this isn't the case for a lot of people. Many of the girls who filled out my survey told me they didn't feel like they could open up with their parents, or that their parents criticized them, making them feel alone at home. I think you have to take into consideration how these girls grew up,